Hello everyone, welcome to Amicable Talks. I am Harsh Bhatia, director of Amicable Crew.
Hey guys, I'm Suraj Patija, creative director and post-production head at Amicable Crew.
In this series, we talk with people who have made their mark in the fields of content creation, marketing, advertising, and obviously filmmaking. So today we have with us John Morrissey. He is a film producer, writer, and actor. John has produced films like American History X, starring Edward Norton, Havoc, starring Anne Hathaway, The Bridge, starring Billy Bob, to name a few. John has written and sold many screenplays. As an actor, John appeared both on and off Broadway. He is also a part of the jury at the Oscars. Please welcome John Morrissey. Thank you so much, John, for helping us out with this. And
Great
really,
pleasure.
so John, what are the different subcategories of a producer?
Well, here in the United States, producers are broken into two basic categories: creative producing and line producing. The creative producer is usually the person who initiates the project. Usually it just means they've found a script. They have worked with the writer on developing that script, if necessary. Maybe the script is great when the producer finds it. That's not usually the case. And then the producer goes out and tries to put together a production. He looks for money, for talent, things that can be brought to the table in order to make the package more attractive. In TV, the producers are actually the writers, right? And normally what happens, a television producer will write a script or get hold of a script, get it to a network. If the network picks it up, then they choose what they call a showrunner, which may be the original writer or maybe someone that the network, whatever it may be, has had experience with in the past and trusts. And a writer's room, that is a group of writers, is put together. The original writer will certainly be among them, right? And they get promoted. So from associate to co-producer to producer, this is promotions to the writers. That's not the case with film. The producers and the writers are separate normally. The producers try to juggle multiple projects at the same time. And really rarely are producers spending their time writing unless it's in redeveloping a script that they've acquired. But in pre-production, the other type of producer becomes involved as well. It's called the line producer or the production manager. It's a person who is responsible for facilitating all of the production aspects of the production. For instance, that you need a crane shot, the production manager, line producer, make sure that the crane is on the set that day, and that all of the technical requirements are being met. Creative producers don't really have much to do on a set. I would define myself as a creative producer, and I used to hang around the set all the time. But really, there's no need for it. The variety of producer credits that you see on the screen mean different things. Usually, certainly associate or co-producers are people that have done something for the production, like the example I just gave you, someone has found some money for it. Executive producers come in many forms. Sometimes they're purely money people, and sometimes they are actually active in the production. My former partner, Larry Terman, the head of the #1 producing school in the world, which is the Peter Stark program at the University of Southern California Film School, and he produced The Graduate, one of probably the top 10 films of all time. In the Academy, of which I'm a member, and he certainly was a member, he fought very hard to get producing credit restricted, because he was offended by the fact that producing credits began to be given out like candies. And he was one of the people who engineered the final result in the Academy, which is that when you are nominated for Best Picture, there can only be 3 producers who are allowed to receive that award. And they have to be a producer produced by, I think they will include executive producers, but the production has to determine who are the 3.
Well, we were actually going to come to that part of the award of Best Picture. And why does the producer take away the trophy?
That tradition began in the days when producers had more power than they now do. In the early days of cinema, back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, there were no studio executives per se. There were none. All the studio executives were producers. And what would happen is that agents would send a script to or a director would bring, or somehow a project would get presented to a studio, and the studio would assign it to one of its producers, right? And that person became responsible for the whole movie. And therefore, the producer is regarded as the person who's responsible for creating and getting the movie made. And that's why the producer won the Best Picture award. When the awards were created and developed, it was decades prior to French cinema movement, the auteur, what they call the auteur movement. The auteur theory was sort of developed and presented in the 1960s. And since that time, directors have tried to accrue more and more power and authority in the film. And many directors see a film they make as their vision. They are kind of in control of it all. So what happened is that now when a director like Ridley or any of the top directors that you see takes on a job, they usually insist on a produced by credit as well. Okay. So that whether they do any producing work, and by the way, they do. I mean, Marty Scorsese, for instance, he produces his own movies, and he'll work with other 1, 2, 5, 8 other producers, whatever he needs. But he really is actively producing as well as directing and developing the screenplays and all of that. The same with Spielberg, the same with most of the top directors. So I think it's perfectly legitimate that they take a producer credit. So that's how producers came to be the recipient of the Best Picture award. And as a producer, I adamantly support this system. And so, Suraj, let's just go with producers for Best Picture.
Definitely. Yeah.
So John, let's discuss the budgeting aspect of a project.
You can make a movie for 10 million. You can make the same movie for 60 million. The $60 million version will be probably a lot better looking. It's not always a better movie. Final budgets of a movie are made during pre-production of the movie, 90% of the time. And preliminary budgets are guesses, really, because you're not sitting there calling every vendor, actually getting bids. Because when you do a real budget, you have to get a bid on everything you're going to need from the vendors that will provide you with that. The film, the cameras, whatever. You don't do that prior to pre-production. You do guesswork budgets, approximate budgets. And then in pre-production, you do a final budget.
I mean, there are a lot of beginners in this field. And the first question they have is, what kind of job can they get, specifically in the producer field?
Remember, there's creative producer and there's line producers, right? So on the creative producing side, the most direct track is to go to work for a production company of some kind. Studio, a production company, an individual producer, whatever. That's the main track toward creative producing. A secondary track toward creative producing is you go to work in an agency. And usually you're in the mailroom for a while, and then you're sitting as an assistant to an agent on somebody's desk for anywhere from 6 months to 18 months before you get promoted to be an agent. And then you become an agent and you're representing whatever you're representing, directors, writers, actors. And your relationships that you form and create during your time as an agent is what you utilize to shift into producing. You quit the agency, but you have these relationships with certain writers, for instance, and you go and you become a manager maybe for those clients, and managers can be producers, or you just become an independent producer. But the most direct route is to work for a production company or a producer doing coverage and notes and slowly getting brought up into the producing world. That's the creative producing job track. It's different for the line producer. The line producer's track is production, and you want to start as a PA, a production assistant, right? And you're sent to do all the worst jobs. Like when you have to block off traffic, you're sent 4 blocks down from the set to control traffic. You don't see anything that's going on. You're on a walkie-talkie. You're there for an hour telling guards go this way, that way. And on the walkie-talkie, they come back. And, you know, you're the lowest person. You get the coffee for people. But if the ADs like you, they'll call you to be a PA again. And then they'll call you to be a PA again. Because good PAs are, it's not that they're that rare, it's that they don't remain at that level for long. First ADs and people that work in the AD department are always aware of, oh, he did a good job. And you know, word gets around real quickly on your performance. So then you then get into the AD department. Ultimately, you hope to become a second AD or a second AD, and you climb up. Once you become a first AD, you are really qualified to be a line producer.
So let's move to the Academy section. So John, what is the process that the Academy follows to nominate a film in the Oscars?
The Academy is organized on the basis of departments. So there's the directors division, the producers division, the talent division, the cinematography division, and every nomination is created by that division. So if you are in the Academy as a director, you get to vote to nominate in 2 categories, Best Picture and Best Director. If you're an actor in the Academy, you get to vote in 4 categories, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress. If you are a cinematographer, you get to vote in 2 categories. Actually, actors get 5, Best Picture plus the 4 actors. Cinematographers 2, Best Picture plus their thing. Everybody gets Best Picture plus whatever they are doing. Producers only get Best Picture. What happens is these divisions vote to nominate, right? And they come up with a series of nominations, yes? And they are selected down. Do you know what I mean? There might be 20 candidates, and this division has to narrow it down to 5. That's how nominations get made. In the case of Best International Film, which until this year was called Best Foreign Film, here's how they are chosen. They are submitted by the nations. This year we had 70 some, more than 70 submissions. And there is a committee, a foreign film committee, which is not, you're not chosen, you volunteer to be on it. There's hundreds of people that are on it. I'm on it, I volunteer every year. The films get voted on by the members, selected down to, I don't know, about 10, I think. And then there's a committee that reviews those submissions and picks 5 of them. This is a committee of, you know, the representatives from the branches, like the producing branch and the directing branch. You know, those people, prominent people in the Academy, do the final winnowing down to 5 films. And then, of course, you can vote for them if you can prove that you've seen all 5. There is no requirement of seeing all the films in any other category except Best International Feature.
But thank you so much, John. Brings us to the end of the podcast. So thank you so much for giving us your time.
It's a great pleasure, Harsh. I always enjoy chatting with you, and it's very nice to meet you, Suraj.
Likewise, sir.
I hope your whole podcast goes very, very well, and that you have a lot of great interviews to do.
It will. I mean, all thanks to you. All thanks to you. And again, as I said, some of our viewers might comment on this video and any comments with you. And if there are some questions, we'll do a small session again answering those questions. But it will be way small.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you both, you guys. Have a great day.
You too.
You too.